Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, I'm deeply honored and privileged to be with you all. But before I proceed to say a few words of welcome and also to give you a sort of introduction to this morning's or today's National Human Resources Summit 2020, I would like to take this opportunity to thank some key people who are involved and who support this National Human Resources Summit. First of all, to Tan Sri Michael Yeo, President and Chief Executive of KSI, who has been instrumental in trying to mobilize a number of events, although we are all locked in some ways or locked down in other ways with this COVID pandemic. I think we have to give a lot of credit to KSI and to Tan Sri Michael for this. And of course, this particular summit would not have been possible without the sponsorship and support of the Ministry of Human Resources, in particular, one of its agencies, PERCESO, who has been a sort of a single strategic sponsor, and we thank them for this. And of course, we also have HRDF coming into the picture, and you know that for the first time in our history, or history of the world, or even in Malaysia, you'll find that the COVID pandemic has brought us to a very unprecedented kind of a situation. Under this situation, everyone, without any reservation, is affected. Even school children are affected, workers are affected, families are affected, homes are affected, and the total environment is affected. And how do we respond? And the first response comes from, in some ways, from PERCESO, which says that businesses are disrupted, and therefore employment is an important consideration. Livelihood must be taken care of. Let us support the businesses without retrenchment, without losing job, and they came in to support in that way. Then you will find the second response comes from within the same ministry, HRDF, comes in to look at what is happening in businesses, how workers are affected, whether they are being retrenched, and if they are going to be retooled, how we are going to retool them, and if they are still engaged in the businesses and the businesses are subject to disruptions, how do we upskill them and upscaling them in some ways? I think these are meritorious services that have been done. So I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the government, in particular the Ministry of Human Resources and its agencies, PERCESO and HRDF, for coming out with sustainable kind of support systems as part of the overall stimulus package of the government. Now, ECKL, the Economic Club of Kuala Lumpur, you will be wondering what we are doing. This is again a sort of a think tank, non-profit think tank, come together to discuss key issues in the economy and see how best we would be able to give some visibility to policies and directions that need to be, in particular, coming from the private sector and people who are directly affected by whatever the upheavals that come in the economic sector, the business sector, and also in other areas. Now, we look at this topic itself. leadership and the HR management in the post-COVID new normal. In discussions I always engage with, the word post means is after. The COVID has gone away, and what do we do after that? But it doesn't look like after 8 months of struggle, the COVID has gone away. And in fact, nobody knows when it is going to go away from the scene. And we are grappling with the issues right at this moment, not only in Malaysia. Fortunately, we have got a low risk kind of a scenario. Well done to the public health initiatives from the Ministry of Health and the government. But other countries are facing much more difficult kind of an environment. And therefore, we have to see very carefully with the sort of directives that have been given and how we are going to look at this. In particular, today you are going to focus on some of these key areas. Future of work trends post-COVID-19. We already see the implications of the COVID impact and work environment. Of course, workers affected, but the work environment and the business premises are affected. What is going to happen? Long-term impacts and actions for human resources. If you say that the human resources are the primary and the most important assets of the country, then you have to protect that assets. And if you don't protect the assets, then you'll find that the economic benefit for the whole economy is going to be affected. And I'm sure some of the practitioners of HR are here, and not only here, but those who are following us on the virtual platform. We would like to see how this is going to happen. The number 2 point would be how companies and the government are supporting employees post-COVID-19. Can the businesses continue to support? The answer is no. If the businesses themselves are not viable, how do you support? You have no continuity program. You will have to close shop, and many have done that close shop. This is where the national effort comes in and say that no closures, but hang on, we give you stimulus and so on. The government itself is facing difficulties. Although the government has got the power to borrow more and bring in money and assets to generate the economy into a better position, but the government also has got its own restrictions. But fortunately, I think the Malaysian government has been working on this on a very pragmatic way, and we see the effects of this in the economy. Not a complete lockdown, but now relaxed and then recovery, and hopefully we will be able to come out of it, and we call post-COVID really post-COVID. Changes in recruitment demand post-COVID. I think the pressure on the economy for unemployment is growing up. Government is concerned, public is concerned, and at the same time, you'll find that the retrenchment and the lack of demand is throwing a lot of people, particularly the new graduates, out into the market, no job. So how do we cope with this situation? Update on the Employment Act. I think there are issues connected with the way labor is recruited and managed and retrenched or retired. I think these are new issues. During the COVID and the post-COVID period, you'll find that there are labor issues that come into, and people are looking into the Employment Act, including the new act. How do you address commercial transactions during the COVID period? For 2-year period, you will be able to get some justifications without having to go to the court, but be able to do by way of conciliation or arbitration. That is still in the parliament, and then you will be able to see how businesses cope with the problems of the COVID. Talent development and management. I think this is a very wide field with a lot of changes, particularly virtual format, digitization and digitalization. All these are being talked about, and the economy itself is supposed to transform into a digital economy more and more. These are key issues for the human resource area, and I hope this summit will be able to address this. And I personally would like to congratulate all of you for taking the trouble to be with us this morning and continue up to this afternoon to enjoy the benefits of this summit. And those who are following us on the virtual platform, I also say stay on and continue to sustain yourself free from COVID. With that, thank you very much for us this morning, and happy summit to all of you.
Assalamualaikum. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, KSI. Thank you, Dato Iqbal, for your opening address. And of course, Tan Sri Michael for the kind invitation. So this morning, we will be talking about the macro side in terms of government's incentives. Some of you would know me from my time in Talent Corp. It's nice to reconnect. Now I am a business owner, entrepreneur, and GigaX Global is a platform for professionals to do fractional work. We are also a talent advisory boutique firm looking at data analytics and talent intelligence. So I'll be happy to reconnect with you on my new sort of venture. So this morning, Dato is in Putrajaya, I was told. And, oh, Dato is here. Very nice. Good morning. We just started, Dato. Here. Dato is making a grand entrance. Welcome. Sila. Sure. Thank you. Okay, good. Now we have full quorum. I will do just quick introductions in terms of the panel that you have today with you. Of course, Dato Mohamed Sahar, he's the head of Employment Insurance System Office, Social Security Organization, SOCSO or PEKESO, the sponsor for today's session. Thank you very much. Dato will be sharing with us some of the initiatives that's been launched by government, and SOCSO being an implementing government agency that is rolling it out and sharing with us some of the outcomes or the early results that PEKESO or SOCSO is seeing. And of course, Rony, dear friend, will also be talking about what HRDF has been doing since we moved into the recovery phase of the MCO. And then we will open, of course, the floor for questions and your interjections. And I would invite Dato to give his presentation and keep it to 20 minutes, sir. And then we will have time for a lot more Q&A. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, selamat pagi semua. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yang berbahagia Tan Sri Michael Yeo, Datuk Sri Mohamed Iqbal Rawther, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I'm from the Employment Insurance System, PEKESO. This morning I have to share with you our experience in managing economic stimulus package during pandemic COVID-19, starting since I think since March. Since March this year. Can you go to the slide? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay, these are the outline of the presentation. Next, the introduction. I would like to share with you the overview of what is happening during COVID-19 pandemic. the COVID-19, the first case of COVID-19 starting detected in Malaysia on the 24th of January this year. And on the 16th of March, government Prime Minister made the announcement that we need to do something to control the disease. So on the 19th, there is a full mandatory movement control order, 18th of March, whereby all the movement of mass movement of people around the country is prohibited, and gathering and also house of worship, most everything is being closed down. People cannot enter, and there will also traveling ban interstate within Malaysia, and also tourists from Malaysian wanted to go overseas also being put on hold, and also restriction on tourism tourists from overseas to come over, and also local domestic tourism and visitors are not allowed to travel around the countries. And also at the same time, also all businesses was asked to close. It's mandatory. All government office, schools, university, except essential services. Prior to this lockdown, we was invited by the Economic Action Council to present what we can do from KSO to help the businesses and the workers going to be affected by the pandemic, and also by the Ministry of Finance. Initially, we proposed to the government to about 120 million. That one is prior to the lockdown, sometime in March, and immediately approved by the government, because we are proposing about 120 million to support the employers who were affected by the pandemic. But once the MCO is being instituted, immediately business are really badly affected, because they cannot operate their business, close, cannot make profit, and many companies, especially the micro and small businesses, couldn't be able to pay their worker salaries. So that's our worries. So immediately the employers group make some noise, and because 120 million is barely enough to support many employees, because we are having around 400,000 over employees in the country, and 7 million workers who are registered with KSO. So the first assistance comes in the form of employment retention program, meaning we are giving employers some cash benefit for them not to retrench workers, targeted for workers who are being asked for to go, no pay leave. So we are giving a flat rate of 600 ringgit for 6 months, for 6 months initially. But the program is very popular, and very soon the allocation that is given to us, 60 million from KSO and 60 million from government, is not enough, And suddenly we request again, and then government increased to 240 million. But after some time, after the lockdown being eased, business start operation, there is less demand for workers to go out for unpaid leave. So this program was suspended 15th of June, and to be replaced with subsidy. Just to share our experience during the pandemic, many businesses, especially the micro and SME, which is over 90% of all businesses in the country, are struggling financially. Many of them are, since they are closing, even temporary, is up to 2-3 months, and they are really affected, and many have to reduce their staff, cut their salary, etc. And then during those time, our GDP also dropped from 3.6% in quarter 3 2019 to 0.7 in quarter 1 2020, and we enter into very deep contraction GDP in quarter 2 2020, which is minus 17.1%, the worst in Malaysia's history. And based on my reading, the most affected sector actually is not tourism, it is construction, minus 44.5%, followed by oil and gas, manufacturing, and services and tourism related. But since services and tourism related are heavily rely on manpower intensive industry, so the workers are immediately affected, many of them. Based on our record, about 340,000 workers has been asked to go for unpaid leave, and they have been given assistance from employment retention program. And until 31st of August this year, about 76,147 workers has been retrenched and lost their livelihood. But for retrenched workers, we have our own fund to assist them at least for 6 months to replace their income. The first month we replace about 80% of their income, meaning if they are earning say 4,000 ringgit, we are giving them 3,200 for the first month and 50% for the second month, and reducing for until 6 months to 30%. And based on the DOSM statistic record, there is a sudden spike of unemployment number of people being unemployed from 520,000 average to 860,000 people, or 5.3% of unemployment rate in the country. That one is in May 2020. Next is I would like to share with you what is the stimulus package that being placed under PKSO to manage. The first one is a wage subsidy program. We are being allocated about 13.8 billion ringgit, and additional announcement to be extended to 6 months, additional 5.3 billion. So based on the calculation, until end of this year, there will be around 16.8 billion is sufficient to handle a wage subsidy program. As I mentioned just now, the employment retention program, the 240 million has already closed in 15th of June, which benefited 340,000 workers. And on top of that, government is very kind to the workers who are not entitled for employment insurance benefit because they don't have a minimum qualifying contribution. Because under employment insurance, workers need to contribute at least 12 months before they're entitled to make a claim if they are losing jobs. But during this difficult time, even though they are working, say, for one day or 1 week, if they lost job, being terminated, they are also entitled to be given assistance. But for EIS Plus, we are giving them only 600 ringgit for 3 months. And under Penjana, government allocated 1.5 billion to PKSO to encourage businesses, industry to start hiring people, hiring the unemployed, fresh graduates, school leavers, retrenched workers, etc. And also embedded together with this 1.5 billion is a reskilling and upskilling for those who already been hired, and also we also offering mobility assistance up to 1,000 if they have to relocate from Sabah to Sarawak or Sarawak to Semenanjung, and 600 ringgit within, if more than 100 kilometers, if they have to relocate more than 100 kilometers. And government also been requested, asking us to upgrade our job portal. And on the 15th of June, we rebrand our job portal into My Future Jobs. And together with that, we intend to be the leading agencies comes to labour market information data, the real-time data. Every day we have to share our data, supply and demand to all the interested parties, the policymakers, especially from the education, for them to start retuning their output to meet the demand of from the job markets. And Penjana Gig is proposed by Minister of Finance. This is as a social safety net, as a premium to assist workers who are using a gig platform, using smartphone, etc., to protect them from any accident, injuries, etc. We are allocated about 50 million ringgit. And detail is in the next slide. As you can see, for wage subsidy program, we have 3 categories. For workers, for employers who have 75 workers and 1 to 75 workers, they are entitled to be given 1,200 ringgit for 3 months and subsequently 600 ringgit for another 3 months, total together 6 months. And employers who have 76 employees to 200 workers, they are entitled for 800 ringgit. Also, an additional 3 months for 600 ringgit for altogether 6 months. And for large company, government allocate only 600 ringgit, confined only to 200 workers. So the intention of our wage subsidy is to assist micro and small businesses, because they are the most affected and also subject to wages not exceeding 4,000 ringgit. So it's meant for B40 groups, is a lower income. And the hiring incentive that is currently still ongoing until December. Government allocated 1.5 billion for those workers being hired below age 40. They are being given 800 ringgit for each employee they hire for 6 months. And for over 40 and disabled workers, we are giving 1,000 ringgit for each workers they are hired, also for 6 months. And the condition is for the employer to retain them at least 12 months. Either they want to continue or they can release them. And also we have an apprenticeship program, 600 ringgit for 6 months. And employer are not bound to continuously hire them more than 6 months. They can release them to the market. At least the objective of the government is to give unemployed workers some kind of income assistance, and also for them to also gain working experience. That is the objective. And for the workers, as I mentioned just now, those workers who are being retrenched, or if they are not being paid salary, even 1 month or 2 months, they also can come to PKSO and declare that employer has already breached their employment contract by not paying their wages. They can also claim their employment insurance. As I mentioned just now, reskilling, upskilling, 4,000 ringgit for training space to be given to training providers, and mobility assistance I just mentioned just now. Gig workers, yes. The premium is 232 ringgit per year. Government is subsidizing 70% of it. All right. Next slide is our challenges post-COVID-19. I just like to share with you my personal opinion. Even though employment is already declining, past July, as you can see from the first screen just now. By end of this month, the 6-month bank loan moratorium is ended on September. And also 70% of enterprises who are currently on wage subsidy assistance also will be ending by this September 30th since April. And also we are looking around the globe. The international trade is still not doing very well. Global trade is still sluggish. COVID-19 is also a barrier for people doing import and export activities due to raging COVID-19 as well, especially in our trading partners, in Europe, US, even in India, Philippines and Indonesia. Apparently, the COVID-19 is not being able to be controlled. So we do not know what's going to happen in the future. So even though government is giving us a hiring incentive, as I mentioned just now, but the sentiment for employer to hire is very weak. I would say it's very weak because out of 228,900 job vacancies advertised in our My Future Jobs, with over 230,000 job seekers, only 38,700 or 16.9% job seekers are hired. This is really puzzle to me. Why employer do not want to hire despite the system given, the financial system given by the government. Other challenges that we are facing is the fresh graduate flooding the market by end of November, about 340,000 of them. That also will be challenge for the government how to manage the jobless graduate in the future. All right. Based on my evaluation, there are 3 programs actually appreciated by the government. The first one is wage subsidy program, which is assisted about 330,000, more than 330,000 employers, with 2.71 million workers being assisted, and indirectly we prevent mass retrenchment, I would say. And also employment retention program, we save about 340,000 workers who has been asked to take unpaid leave, has been assisted, and also their job is retained.
Dato, if I may, just another 3 minutes to wrap up.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
So, okay, I go next. The lesson learned from this episode. As I mentioned just now, wage subsidy and the employment retention program is the most appreciated by the businesses. It is very fast, timely, and as compared to other measures introduced by the government. This was told by the Minister of Finance. And also the 2 programs, the active labour market program just now as mentioned, is very effective in stabilizing employment and successfully avoid massive retrenchment. And the other group, the self-employed, is really the most affected because they are not their data is not recorded anywhere, so very difficult government to assist them, including KESO. And then the lesson learned, the other point is the current almost 19.1 billion that allocated for KESO is way too big for our fund to manage this kind of shock in the future. So that's why we need to immediately revamp our law and also to look into sustainability and the adequacy and also the policy flexibility of employment insurance. The other point is the absence of data, the real-time labour market data, which contribute to difficulty for Ministry of Finance and EPU to formulate targeted labour market intervention. And the other point that we observe, local workers actually are willing to do 3D job, but low wage regime currently in the Indonesia, which is bound by minimum wage of 1,001 and 1,002, is the main hindrance for job seekers to, especially in major towns, major cities, to take the jobs. So the last slide is just my promotion on our hiring incentive. As I mentioned, for employers in this room, please take your time to assist us to promote this program in all your members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato. Thank you for the insightful presentation. We'll keep the questions to the end. Now may I invite Rony Ambrose Gobilee. He is the Chief Program Officer at HRDF. So while we look at the data that Dato has showed in terms of loss of employment and all that, let's listen to what HRDF is doing to sort of support our talent with their programs. Thank you, Rony.
Thank you, Ms. Shareen. yang berbahagia, Datuk Tan Sri Michael Yeo, President of KSI Strategic Institute for Asia Pacific, Datuk Sri Mohamed Iqbal, Chairman of the Economic Club Kuala Lumpur, Dato, ladies and gentlemen. The challenge of being the second speaker is that you need to be able to continue what this first speaker have spoken. Am I right? So another challenge that I'm having, I will try to do my very best to cram our 28 years of experience in 20 minutes or lesser. So please bear with me. Nonetheless, in doing so, I would like to start by just introducing HRDF to the few of us maybe who have not come across on HRDF before today. Yeah, so to do that, allow me to just highlight that HRDF is actually an agency under the Ministry of Human Resources. Our main role is to ensure that the industry would have a platform for upskilling and reskilling of the workers. And over the years, we have evolved in terms of our role. And this has been reflected in our vision, whereby our current vision is to ensure all Malaysians employees are trained. But having said that, we are not actually new in this platform. HRDF was first established in 1993 through the establishment of the Human Resource Development Act 1992. And over the years, the mandate has actually been enriched. We started by focusing on each of the manufacturing employers to have their training fund through the Act. And eventually, we add on and expand the Act coverage to also cover services, mining and quarrying, and perhaps in the future will be more. And the current focus is, of course, to ensure that Malaysian, by the year 2030, to have sufficient skilled workers so that the industry would have its potential to grow. Currently, we covered almost 34,000 employers, covering 2.5 million of workers throughout Malaysia. This number is rather small compared to the actual number of workers that currently our brothers and sisters available who are working in the industry. There are around 15 millions of them. Yeah. And then, of course, over the years, we have collected more than 8 billion from the industry and disbursed back to the industry more than 7 billion. The levy utilization currently is at 80% percentage of level of activeness. And also within the 28 years, we have approved more than 16 million number of training places. So the employers has actively trained their workforce as far as levy utilization is concerned. Now, what is the benefit or what is the impact of what we have done? In 2017, the World Bank actually came and scrutinized our activities. And they come out with a report during that time when they compared between those employers who are registered with HRDF and pay levy and use that levy to train their workers against a group of employers who also conduct training, but they do not contribute to the levy fund. So what was the difference of outcome? They concluded that the first group has actually benefited 3% of productivity increment in every 1% of workers trained in their organization, compared to those who are not contributing to HRDF. They are experiencing of 1% productivity increment in every 1% workers trained. Now, during that year, our productivity growth is actually 2.7%. So the employers who contribute and pay levy and utilize their levy actually benefit more on productivity increment. Everything was good. The numbers are increasing since the year 1992. Every year we have been benefiting, or we have been looking into the average of CAGR, roughly around 10 to 15% growth come year 2020. This is where the stance comes in. Everything changed. The norm is no longer the same. The way, the benefit that we are experiencing is now getting threat. Come COVID. This is where the industry and everyone has taken aback. The industry, some of them are badly affected. Even until now, some are trying to struggle to go out from where they are currently is. Employment has been threatened. If you look at the data shown by our colleague from SOCSO, it's around 76,000 unemployment, our retrenched workers that happen currently, and the number of unemployment increased to 5.2%. We used to experience 3.9%. Now, how does this effect translate to training? Well, we are experiencing currently the reduction of 47% training happening in the industry compared to last year and this year's comparison. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the era of uncertainties. So my next presentation is actually to address the question that's being thrown to us. So what is HRDF doing in order to support this current situation? But let me caution you, in the era of uncertainties, I might be leaving this podium with more questions, right? So maybe we will answer that later in the Q&A session. So the question that we are looking at, what are we doing in order to caution this? This is not the normal economic situation that we are looking at. We have gone through a lot of economic challenges. Financial aspect come into in 1998, 2008. Nonetheless, we recovered fast during that time because it was financial crisis, economic factors. But what we are facing today is more larger than that. This has frozen us from our movement. This is a health issues that we are looking at. So how fast can we recover from this? That is a question that everyone is still asking. The international IMF came out with a theory that we are going to have a V rebounds in terms of economy. But how fast can we rebound? So the government realized this, that they need to push something back to the industry so that the industry would be able to have some form of support. That's where the Penjana funding comes in. Now, there are at least 40 platform of usage of Penjana funding that is available, which I'm not going to highlight here. All of you are aware about it. But what I'm going to look into here currently is the training and development, upskilling and reskilling. Because underneath every economic development is the people. The support for every technology advancement is the people. So bottom line is, what are we doing to make sure that they are prepared, to make sure that they are sustained, and to make sure that they are relocated in terms of job employment? This is where HRDF comes with our Penjana package. There are 5 initiatives that we group into this one package that we call HRDF Penjana. These 5 initiatives is meant to address every single group in terms of their different requirements. They are initiatives meant to prepare the pre-employment group to come into the industry. They are initiatives meant to actually enable those who do not want to come to the industry, but they would like to have self-sustainable income. There's also packages or initiative that is addressed to those people who are currently working. How, with the additional skills and competency, they would not only be able to sustain the way they are currently, but also to grow together with their employers. So we start with the first initiative with what we call Place and Train. Now, Place and Train is meant to address 3 groups. The first one are those who are from the school leavers, our anak-anak. The second one is those who are unemployed graduates, maybe our adik-adik and also our anak-anak, depends on where you are currently. I'm still young, by the way. And the third group are those who are retrenched. Now, these are the group that in the current situation would need the most help compared to the previous year that we are in. So what does this Place and Train looks at? It looks at bringing those, the 3 groups just now, to the industry to be employed. And the focus is placement. First, placement. Second, training. So under this Place and Train, employers who have been participating with us, roughly currently we anticipate somewhere around 2,500 employers already working together with us. We'll be employing these 3 groups of categories to be stationed at their workplace and to be trained. So we are looking at somewhere around 40,000 job placement to be done through this mechanism, Place and Train. But at the same time, we also realize that not everyone, especially the new generation, would want to stick with 9 to 5 working hours. So there comes the second and third initiative, which is the B40 development as well as the gig economy. The B40 development programs is actually meant to help individuals that fall under this category to become entrepreneurs. So that's under this initiative, they will be equipped with the current skills that they intend to embark to in terms of businesses, and they will be hand-holding by the training providers, our strategic partners, who also going to work together with us. And the third initiative, we put the GIG to a different name, we call it Gerak Insan Gemilang, where this third initiative is actually to support our friends, our colleagues, our brothers and sisters who would like to acquire specific skills to become freelancers, so that their target or market is beyond the local environment or the local boundaries. As we all know, freelancers, Greek economies, their market is the entire world. So what are the skills required for them to actually be equipped and to be ready to become freelancers? Those are the technical skills that they will be equipped with under this gig economy platform. And the fourth and the third initiative is actually looking at sustaining those who are currently already in the market, already in the employment, which is the SME development as well as the upskilling and reskilling initiative. Now, allow me to highlight that all these 5 initiatives that I've mentioned, all are eligible for the Penjana funding that the government has provided. Of course, the fourth initiative, which is the SME development, is looking at those who are currently working with small and medium enterprises, both their employers as well as the workers themselves, to be equipped with the future skills that they currently do not or may have less, so that they would be able to bring value to the employers, to help the employers to grow. At the same time, we are hoping that the employers sustain them in the workplace and help these workers to grow as well because they have acquired additional skills. On the fifth, last but not least, initiative where we are targeting, we are looking at somewhere around 20,000 workers may benefit from this, is the upskilling and reskilling, focusing mostly on the Industrial Revolution 4.0 required skills. Now, why Industrial Revolution 4.0 is the current focus? Now, this may link to my next slides which I'm going to share, but just allow me to close this slide by saying that moving forward in the era of uncertainties, we may call it post-COVID or pre-post-COVID, whatever we would like to call it, most industries, in fact, some industries may be considering of adopting technology to do their businesses. And these technologies is where the Industrial Revolution 4.0 may fall in. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, again, before I go into the next slides, some industries, like what I mentioned to you just now, considering strongly to adopt technology as their enablers. This is where the automation may come in and may pose a challenge to some employees if they do not equip themselves with the skills and knowledge and requirement needed to actually operate those technology. And if you look at the extension of our current initiative under Penjana, we also have what we call as HRDF Placement Center, where it enables job seekers, especially the retrenched workers, the unemployed school leavers, and unemployed graduates to actually register themselves. So this is going to be our one center to actually capture their needs and to match against our employers who are participating in this initiative. Yeah, so it's going to be a benefiting platform for both for all the employers, employees, as well as the training providers.
Rony,
Now,
5 minutes. Thank you.
About to finish. So those who are here, if let's say you are in the training providers group, by participating in this initiative, you would be able to actually understand that you would need to focus your program to support the needs of this current focus group. Yeah. And actually, this is my last slides. I would like to take this opportunity to actually invite everybody to disseminate the information to our brothers and sisters who are out there to actually register themselves under Penjana HRDF portal. for them to actually be able to participate in all the schemes that I've just mentioned earlier. Yeah. So again, I thank you for your attention, and I'll pass back to Shareen.
Thank you, Rony. The numbers, as I was stacking it up in my head, there are about 100,000 that you will train, place, your gig sort of interventions and all that. And at the same time, when Dato was sharing the data with us, there was a lot of vacancies, and then there's also a lot of people who have experienced job loss, but somewhere in between, it's not really adding up because the numbers that got hired were a bit of a mismatch. So maybe I start the Q&A with the question of, where is the, why are the trends looking like that when a government has, given the penjana for at least immediate and short-term support, but we're not still seeing some of the good numbers coming through. Maybe it's still early, but, Dato', what are some of your thoughts looking at it? Because there's a lot of concerns out there, kan? Yeah, not many job seekers hired despite all the incentives and the platforms and all that, kan? What's going on? Just want to understand from your perspective.
Okay, thank you, Madam Shareen. I have this little puzzle, within ministry we have proliferation of job portal. And only My Future Job is offering hiring incentive, 1,800 ringgit. Too many job portal within ministries create a lot of confusion among the employers and also job seekers. So this need to be addressed, I believe. We should have only one portal, one single portal that, for employer to, share vacancies and job seeker to share their resume, etc. So then from there, we can have a very good data on supply and demand. And these data are very important for policymakers, especially in the education and training, because currently there is no link between supply and demand to be used by universities and Ministry of Education to plan their student. How many people should go to certain faculty, certain field of study, etc. So if the figures are fragmented, I believe it will create a problematic in data analytics. And also, if we combine data, it could be a triple counting and double counting, etc. And some portion of what you call it data, from vacancies and the job skill could be missing. This is another point. I think we have to. The ministry should look seriously into this. I believe. Thank you.
Rony, because I see there's some potential of alignment between the portals that's here and over here. So I'm going to be a bit provocative in asking you to sort of share a little bit your insights, and then we open up to the floor. Thank you, Rony.
So thank you, Shareen. Maybe I'll address this. Actually, your main question is how come there's not much number of people being employed, despite of all the efforts that are being put in by the government. But before I go to that, let me address on the first question that you raised just now. Again, this scenario that we are currently in is a special scenario compared to the previous year that we had. The numbers is big, 76,000 retrenched work group. And these are those numbers that are being reported to us. I believe there are more, especially numbers that are not reported with any of us. So this is where, as much as we agree to have one area of control, but the more support that we can give, the larger group may benefit from it. So that is my take on the first question. Now, going back to the actual question that you were asking just now, opportunities platform prepared by the government is one aspect. The other main aspect is the meeting of the supply and demand. The employers have their needs when they do the recruitment. They have their criteria, they have jobs in mind. The supply, which is the applicants, may have their sets of skills and experience and so forth. This can only materialize if both met, right? And of course, this may take some time. And these efforts that the government has put in is still in the spreading mode. We are still creating awareness. People are still getting the information. I believe it's only a matter of time before we can actually see the number to grow.
So then there are options, you're saying. There's a lot out there in the market driven by the government and the government agencies as well as private sector players who are doing this piece of work in terms of making sure that there is a good match between the supply and demand. Can I open the floor for questions? Anybody? Just come up to the mic, introduce yourself, your organization, and questions, please. We'll keep the comments short. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. Raja Muzamil from Robert Walters. We do recruitment. This is on the job advertised versus new joiners. I think that the stats that was shared is very interesting. And I agree with Datuk Sahar's statement earlier in terms of how puzzling it is in terms of supply and demand. So what we do is basically, I guess from my observation, the onus is on the employer to be, what from my observation is to be less rigid in terms of expectations. Employers must be educated in terms of and advised in terms of to reduce the expectation, because there are a lot of talented people out there. So for certain jobs, you know, the onus is on the HR or the employer. Try to be more flexible in terms of the skill sets that they're hiring. So I guess that's one of the roles that we are playing as well as a recruitment company, to educate our clients in terms of, you know, try to be less rigid in terms of the expectation. So inshallah, I see that the jobs are opening up in the market. So there might be a delay effect, Dato, in terms of the stats that you see, because I think in terms of hiring, you know, there may be a slight increase going up in the future. But in summary, I thought that if the employers and the HR practitioners out there can break the norm and think outside the box in terms of hiring people who, for example, we hire IT people to go into HR now because of the demand in HR systems and everything. So yeah, so if we can do, if every one of us can do our part in educating the employers, try not to be too textbook in terms of hiring black and white, in terms of the expectations.
Was there a question in that? Thank you for your introduction. Did you have a question for the panel?
Yeah, okay. My question goes to, it's not so much of a question, but to address that there may be a delay effect in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have half an hour for the discussion, so I really would like to stimulate a lot more questions. Thank you to the
Hi, I do have a
panelists.
question. My name is Lei Sheng. I'm from the Women's Aid Organization. Thank you for the really enlightening presentation. So my question is addressed to Mr. Rony Ambrose. You mentioned the three groups that the government is targeting, right? But I think it's important to add a fourth group, women workers. To give a bit of context, between fourth quarter 2019 and second quarter of 2020, there were about 80,000 women workers who left the labour force. The majority of them who cite care work, for unpaid care work, because of school closures, childcare closures. At the same time, there's only about 6,000 men workers, a shrinkage of 6,000 male workers in the labour force. You know, something the HRDF has done in the past few years is the HARTS program, right, which is the Housewife and Husband Retraining Scheme. I was wondering if HRDF is looking to scale up that kind of program, because it's so important to target women on their career break, especially during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That is a very interesting point that has been raised. But let me start by saying that HRDF scheme that we are offering currently, Penjana and everything, is open to both genders, male and female, because both are experiencing most probably the same challenges that they are facing. Now, addressing specifically your view or your point just now, I think your statement is supported strongly by the stats, right? It's a well-known statistics that most A's in universities are scored by women, right? So they are the intelligent group. But at the end of the day, those who actually stay in the workplace are the male. So where goes all our women who are the intelligent one? This is because they have all the commitment they have. Some of them have diplomas, degrees, and even masters, PhDs, but they have to shy away from the employment because they need to commit to the families, kind of thing. This is a given fact. But as far as skilling and upskilling is concerned, they can come in any of the platforms that currently prepared by HRDF. Outside the Penjana, we have other initiatives like, for example, HEARTS. HEARTS is actually meant to bring in the women who already have the tertiary education back to the industry. Yeah, so maybe we can talk separately about this if, let's say, you're interested to explore more on this HEARTS initiative that we have. But let me close by saying that our Penjana initiative is open to both male and female. Thank you, sir.
And in Talent Corp, we used to do the career comeback program as well. Very important point about women in the workforce, something I'm very passionate about. Some of the things that we also observe is that, the gig economy or the fractional work, like I like to call it, is also quite tailored to women because it gives them the flexibility. And help me to demystify the myth that, if you are a freelancer or you're a gig worker, you don't really have the opportunity to subscribe to some of the incentives because you technically don't have an employer. So that's a topic that perhaps, you want to address while we wait for the questions coming through from the people from the floor. Dato, you want to take that one about the gig economy and, technically they don't have employers, so how do they benefit? Because there's a myth to say that, they can't benefit from the incentives. You've addressed some of it in your presentation.
Sorry. For gig economy, we only provide social security insurance premium, just in case if they, because most of them are, like food deliveries. If they commit accident using motorbike, they need some kind of insurance coverage so they can their survivors, if they are permanently disabled, they get a long-term benefit from KSO. But beyond that, since there's no relationship between employer and employees, they are not covered under KSO and SIP, so there's no way that we can assist them in terms of skills upgrading, etc. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, please.
I just would like to add the point from HRDF perspective when we talk about the gerak insan gemilang gig economies. Under this Penjana gig economy, HRDF, the existence of employers for the gig is secondary. The person themselves, they will come into the system, they will be equipped with technical skills together with our learning partners, that learning institutions, which later on they will be shown the way of how to secure freelance work with international market. Like say, for example, we have many platforms out there like freelancers, Workana, all those who engage freelancers or gig economies. So to answer your question just now, under this platform, the existence of employer is not required.
Yeah. So it's about access. And sometimes when you look at the loss of employment issue, while you're waiting for your next sort of permanent employment, the gig economy supports you to actually get engaged in fractional work and collect that portfolio of work that you've done in between. So that could be, a good way to actually manage the loss of employment overall, right? As one of the solutions. The Malaysian audience here a bit shy lah. Come to the mic, please. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay, there's two. Could I just get the gentleman at the back? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alex Raja from Ecclesia. So,
Yep, we heard you. Have the employers been engaged to find out why they're not hiring when there's a lot of,
that's my question. Yeah.
talent in the market? Thank you. Addressed to any one of the panel, Alex? Yeah. Who wants to take this? Dato?
No, we just engaging them. We just started engaging them, asking, why whether the vacancies that they advertise in our portal is being filled. If they fill, we wanted to have their names and also to apply for hiring incentive. If they do not know how to apply, and if they has not has not do the hiring, we have to ask the reason why, you know. And based on my observation from the behavior of the job that being advertised, in major town, you know, especially if the wages is around minimum wage, 1,002, apparently, like factory workers, there is very minimal of application from local workers. Advertisement for IT for in the government sector, then there will thousands of job seekers applying for that particular jobs. So workers are very selective this day, and mostly also the employers, they just hire and also just collect the resume, and they maybe needs more time to to collect more resume before they start interviewing. But anyway, based on our activities, the job fair and frequent, because we have 50 officers throughout Malaysia, we do weekly small scale interview arrangement with employers, and the hiring is quite positive. Based on that, because certain like micro and small companies, they do not have a HR professional. They need our officers to doing the shortlisting and also to choose the best candidate for them to be interviewed. Yeah,
Thank you. Rony, you want to add anything to that?
I'm just coming from the last point from Dato Sahar just now. They're not hiring because it's not meeting their requirement. But before that, I would like just to highlight, in my personal opinion, those employers who came forward to tell that they have vacancies, actually, they sincerely have the intention of recruiting. But of course, being an employer, they need to ensure that the people that they're recruiting meets their requirement. Companies need to come first. So again, to answer your question, I think they really want to recruit, but it's a matter of time before they meet the right candidates. Yeah. Now, on top of that, I would also like to highlight that this kind of supply and demand question also applies to the other side. If we ask the employers, why aren't you recruiting? We should also ask the other side, why are you not applying, right? So if you ask that question from the other perspective, they may come to you with a lot of reasons, salary, location, and so forth. This is where I'm coming to the angle where this supply and demand will happen if those candidates and the employers, their needs are met together, right? And I hope that can expand your question just now.
Thank you. The gentleman in the front.
Testing. Okay. First of all, thanks Dato as well as Rony for sharing great info. I would like to bring up a gig economy topics. I think that's upcoming trend, right? When talking about gig economy. But don't you think so? It's actually conflict with the organization as well as SMEs. So this is question number one. And question number two is, for long-term perspective, how good it is if, let's say, we be able to encourage those gig economy go into entrepreneurship rather than focusing on just gig economy program by itself.
Anyone? Yeah. Who wants to comment on that? Yep. Thanks, Rony.
I would like to answer your question with another question, right? Can we stop the trend? I'm coming from this angle, yeah? But then again, this is my perspective. I think in a very near future, we might need to redefine the terms workplace. Gone were the days where we always look workplace in a conventional way. There is an organization, there is a place where we work from one time to another time. Moving forward, the trend of the future could be, and this COVID might be the sign of us to know that we need to change the way we work. And to be attached to a single organization, perhaps, may not be the only way. It is one of the ways, but it's not the only way for an individual to sustain themselves economically. That's where the gigs options comes in. There are people who wouldn't want to be restricted in terms of their income potentials. That is the reality of the current generation that we are looking at. Now, coming from where we are coming, the question is, should we go against the trend? We do understand that we need to save the current business environment, which is what the effort being done. But at the same time, we should not be restricting those other options given the current situation that we are in. Yeah. If this is a normal situation, maybe perhaps we will have different countermeasure. But special situation may require special countermeasures. So perhaps that is where I need you to bear with us. Let's see the progress and the outcome that we're going to achieve from this.
If you can just add from that, even in the pandemic, we're working from home, right? And we continue to work. So that work environment is completely changing. The trend is there. But where, at least in the work that I do, we talk to companies about an agile workforce model. Agile workforce model means there will be, a significant number or a number of people who are your permanent employees because you need them to run your operations. But there will be a group of people that you tap onto the gig economy, professionals or different type of talent, that you will require that you don't have the skill sets anyway to begin with in your organization. So there is a lot of data and a lot of research on that already. 2018 research shows that 56% of companies today, this is a global data, says that they will depend on independent workers to augment the kind of skill sets that they don't have. So take example of companies who want to go digital, and you are traditionally a company that has not looked at a digital strategy. You may need to look at a professional coming from the gig economy to design that strategy for you, because that's quick and the person can come in and do that. So a bit of insights there. Dato.
I just add on from there. I believe the trend for gig economy is flourishing all over the world, because even in the US itself, in the Europe, gig platform is growing very fast, especially during these pandemic times. Because based on my interview of some of the riders on the streets, their income is not bad. Normally, like Lazada, for example, they can earn around 3,000, 4,000 on the good days. And also they have their own free time. And if they like to, have additional income, they just put more hours on the road or from working from home. Whereas if you are working as ordinary workers, like factory workers, for example, they can only earn about 1,002 ringgit, which is way too low to support livelihood in major town. But the problem with gig economies, workers, it's okay if you are still young, but if you are growing older, like more than 30, 40 years old, I don't think you would like to spend your time on the road.
Yeah, if you talk about the transactional, if you talk about professionals, people who have retired or about to retire, deep wisdom, a lot of experience, they want to do mentoring maybe, coaching and get engaged in projects that they are skilled for. So I wouldn't discount the seniors yet. I think they're a wonderful resource to really strengthen our human capital. We've got about 10 more minutes if anybody would like. Yes, Alex again, sorry. No, well, okay, Alex.
The question is about the other side now, about the workforce. So we seem to be having a mismatch of the skill set or the expectation of the salary. So I've got two questions here. So how are we going to bridge the other side? Increasing the minimum wages, or subsidizing the expected salary, or is the correct upskilling being done in the correct skill areas? That's the first question. The second one is, what's going to happen in October? All the benefits are being stopped. What's going to happen in October?
You will hear from Tan Sri Jamilah later about health security. And now we are very much aware that health security is the only security that we need then for the economy and everything else to sort of get started. So we'll hear from her, but your first question, Rony, mismatch again, skills, expectations, demand, supply. We have a lot of matching platforms there. Why are we not matching it well enough?
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't get your name just now, sir. Alex. Yeah, Mr. Alex. I think there's a whole lot of discussion can be done based on those two questions alone, which I think it won't give fair justice to both either the employer's perspective or the worker's perspective of why this scenario actually happened. But to just give you a very preliminary answer to that, the issue of mismatching between skills and requirement of employers is actually a very complex thing. Yeah, there is no one formula, in my humble opinion, that would be able to strike this phenomena right. Discovering what skills required by the industry and what and how we should equip ourselves as the potential workers is a long journey. In fact, once you are into the industry, this journey does not stop. It still continues. So let's that question remain as it is. Because as long as this question exists, there's a mismatch and everything, there is always potential for us to improve. Yeah? As a worker, because of this question, there's always a question, what else that I need to equip myself so that I can bring value to my employers? From the employer's perspective, because of this question, they will be asking themselves, moving forward, if I want to expand my businesses, if I want to embark into new technologies, what are the skill areas that I need to ensure my workers or my potential workers to have? Yeah. So if I may appeal to the audience, let's not look at this question from a negative perspective or from the half-empty cup perspective, but rather let's look into a half-full cup perspective. Because of this, we are still moving. Because of this, training providers and consultants are here, because together we need to address this issue. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anthony, you had a question. There's always never a perfect match, right, in anything. Yes, Anthony.
Thank you to the moderator and panelists. I think good sharing. 2 questions. Question number 1, we do have a significant number of job portals out there. I know you addressed it. Is it time for us to look at it from a unified approach? A unified approach, which means we're able to access demand and supply and able to produce that data. That's number 1. Number 2, is it essential at this point of time for our country to look at a national jobs index? It's not new. The concept is already there around the world, but I think I'm proposing from a policy perspective, we should consider this because this is able to report as national jobs index. These are the 2 questions. Thank you.
Yeah, can I respond to that? I think what you just mentioned, is the right direction that the government should take, But for in Pekeso, we have a solution for that already. Data is the most important for for the government, for the education ministry to plan their student. In fact, for the student itself, they must know the situation on the ground, the condition of the market, the job openings, which job actually in demand. Before they enter university. Once they enter university and they choose their faculty, that is too late already. And also for the ministry, Ministry of Education, also to plan not only the field of study and also the number that each faculty need to produce every year. Otherwise, the mismatch, we are going to repeat what is happening for the past 10, 20 years. Even though there is a public employment services in Malaysia, but they don't produce data. They just do the matching, and the data is not available for policymakers to have a look into it. This is the major missing in Malaysia. That's why once we embark on this My Future Jobs, we already settled the basic platform for job matches there. Before we develop our job portal, we have conducted a lot of studies. We compared the job portal in United States, in Europe, in Korea and Japan. We found out that in the US, they are using ONET, call it taxonomy. Every job title, they have a specific job description, specific skills, knowledge, and etc. It's well embedded. For example, like a software developer, there are 20, 30 skills that they need to acquire before they are being expert in a software developers. Otherwise, if you depend on university also do not know which skills are in demand. Qualification alone does not help this stage. After 5 years, most probably your qualification is no longer relevant in matching because Occupation are changing very fast these days. Industry are changing very fast these days. Technologies keep improving, and that's why to have a single employment motive is the most basic for Malaysia to have. From there we can access all the demand and demand and supply, matching, mismatch, etc. Luckily, we found out that taxonomy that used in Europe by 27 European countries, the name is ESCO, European Skill, Occupation and Skills Classification, is the best, the most closest to Malaysia, because we cannot use United States because they are not using MASCO, for example, and Europe, because we are using Europe ISCO, we are using ESCO standards being used in almost all. It's a compulsory to be used by all European countries. Currently, our search and matching engine are using 100% from Europe, but we need to, from time to time, to localize the, the skills, the nomenclature of the jobs. We are still learning, we are still developing. It's not 100% completed. So from there, from every occupation, there will be skills, there will be knowledge, and there will be training for specific occupation. That's why I'm still so puzzled. Why, based on our engagement with training providers, normally they offer one type of courses fit for every occupation. That is really a puzzle to me, because accountant, engineers, software developers, they need different skills. One training provider cannot solve everything. So that's why from here, mostly we need to educate all the training providers to look properly into the skills needed in each occupation, and for them to offer the right courses for emerging demands and courses. But for high-end courses, it's very expensive. That also we need to learn how we going to conduct training. Is it based on, for example, like technical skill? It could cost 10 or 20,000 ringgit for within 7-8 days, which is very expensive. It's just only to get one skill, but with that skill they can earn very high income, 3,000, 6,000. We are still learning from that. Hopefully, if we completed our taxonomy, localized taxonomy, then mostly we can share this data, supply demand, with the policymakers, the universities, for them to modify on the supply side, and hopefully we reduce the the mismatch, oversupply, etc. Even currently, also we heard like a medical doctor is already oversupply because government cannot absorb anymore. Even you want to attend housemanship, there's not enough place for them. So by right, Ministry of Education should reduce the intake. Currently, everybody wanted to be a doctor. At the end, there's no job for you. That's a sad thing for Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're coming to the end. Thank you so much for all your comments, your questions, to the two esteemed panel members who have given us insights of what's happening in Perkeso and what HRDF is doing. Obviously, this short-term, immediate sort of support that we need to do during this pandemic. And, there are more questions, like Rony says, than there are answers. But we have been enlightened by very, insightful comments about, keeping an eye on the matching, keeping an eye on the supply and demand, skills, the right skills for the right jobs, the right training for the right, skills that's needed. So that's the conclusion. Thank you very much. Please continue to engage with the panelists and engage in this topic the whole day of talking about human capital. I will hand over the session to our MC, and we close with a word of thanks for Dato and Rony. Thank you.